Okay, we got the rise and fall of Soulcalibur.
Welcome to the stage of history retold.
Bro, the Soulcalibur announcer goes hard as fuck, dude. I remember that, man.
I love fighting games, and it's amazing to see the genre's popularity return in recent years, especially following the releases of new games like Street Fighter 6, Guilty Gear Strive, and Grand Blue Fantasy vs Rising, as well as the epic rise of my current favorite, Tekken 7,
Nice.
which may change soon, since I'm having so much fun with Tekken 8 right now. Currently, Tekken is the only popular 3D fighting game series on the market, and as someone who grew up on 3D fighters, I can't help but want to see more of them strive in the same way. How has this come to be, when we've had so many great titles show up in the past?
Oh my god, I remember Dead or Alive. But this is like a later version of Dead or Alive. Was it Dead or Alive 5? Back in high school, what was it? What did we play? I think we played Dead or Alive 3 or 4. I can't remember. But me and my buddy Kyle would just practice the shit out of Dead or Alive. But I mean, unfortunately, there weren't really a lot of tournaments near us. But there was, what do you call it? There was like online ranked play with one of those games. I forgot which, but it was so funny. Because there was a like one time where me and my buddy Kyle were just like going back and forth on like the ranked ladder, and he was a little bit more plugged in than I was, and he was better than me. And apparently he queued up a match, and he recognized the name of the person. I think he was doing like some sort of like King of the Hill match, or like winner stays, and there's like a lobby of people, and like when you're not like playing, you're just viewing the match and you're just waiting for your turn to go in, and whoever won stayed in the match, and whoever lost, they got to go to like the back of the line. And he recognized the name of the person, and he's like, dude, Cornel, this is like a fucking some champion person or whatever. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He's like, dang, okay. And he was like super excited, because I don't remember if we were playing on like fight stick or controller. I think we were playing on controller at the time. I think, or maybe it was fight stick. I don't remember, or arcade stick. I mean, but whatever. But I mean, he was playing and going back and forth. I think instead of like best or like first to 2, it was like first to 3 rounds. So there was like an extra little match right here, and it was like literally back and forth the whole match. It was like one of the longest matches I've ever seen. And it ended up my buddy Kyle making like these crazy ass predictions, because with Dead or Alive, it was you could parry high, parry medium, or parry low. And he just came out with some crazy ass fucking predictions on like some parries on the last match. It went down to like the 1, 2, 3, 4. It went down to the 6th match, and he got like 3 parries right in a row, and it was on this one level where it was like an electric fighting ring, and when you hit a wall combo, and I think he was playing as Ian or Ein, when you hit like one of his like counters, it like pushed you in like some direction into the wall, and on this one you took like extra electric damage on the wall, and he followed it up with like some combo, and it was like a boom, he just won. He just beat like some champion person, and he was like, we were like, both of us were like super psyched at the time. But yeah, I was like, dang, dude, we were just like over the moon at that point, and then he just got rolled next round.
Today, I'm here to explore the history of one of my favorite series that has sadly faded into the background over the years.
Oh, was that Bloody Roar with like the beast one?
Soulcalibur.
Oh, yeah, it's the jam. Bro, Soulcalibur actually fucking goated. I really want to know that there was like some fall. Like, why was there like a fall with Soulcalibur? Soulcalibur was like the premier weapon fighting game. Did not play the first one though.
Transcending history and the world, a tale of soul and swords, eternally retold.
Is this the actual like opening music? Is that Udyr? Is that Vega?
At the very beginning of it all, in 1996, Soul Edge was introduced to arcades in Japan by Namco, led by its creator, Hiroaki Toriyama. This fresh new 3D fighting game introduced characters wielding weapons this time, similar to Battle Arena Toshinden, offering a different experience from their other new game, Tekken.
Oh, is that Tekken?
A unique introduction
like first
to this
Tekken?
game was the guard impact system, allowing
yeah.
players to reflect opponents, catching them off guard and leaving them open to a counterattack. I would assume
It's kind of like parries from Third Strike, but I think one of the difference was if you guard impacted, the guard impact was kind of like a parry, and in that you had to like kind of predict, what your opponent was gonna do beforehand or like time it correctly. But like with parries and Third Strike, the enemy's move just kept on going, and to what was it, like the active frames, and then it went into like recovery frames. But when you parried correctly, you just had no hit stun and could like act like instantly. But guard impact, whenever you guard impacted something, what was it? It looked like it stopped the move, and it put them into hit stun, and you could just act immediately at a guard impact.
this was received well back then, but it wasn't the original idea. That feature, along with a few other things prevalent in the games today, were only added into new arcade versions months after the game came out, following a lot of complaints about difficulty raised by players.
I never had such an easy victory.
Siegfried.
The story was
That was like Siegfried, like version 1. That's crazy.
based back in 1583 and revolved around a demonic blade called Soul Edge, focusing on each character's lives in relation to it, especially the series' main character, Siegfried. This proved to be a great stepping stone to create unique and interesting characters from many different backgrounds, which is something I always appreciate about the Soul series, and fighting games in general.
Yeah, because in general, like a fighting game's story or lore usually comes secondary, if not tertiary, to the actual core gameplay of a fighting game. Nobody usually plays fighting games for a story. But with the case of Soulcalibur, it had like a decent story tacked onto it, which was really cool.
It also included a unique story mode called Edgemaster mode, where you would go on an adventure traveling around the world with a single character, following them on a quest to find Soul Edge, collecting different weapons along the way. This would become something unique to this series, and go through many iterations in newer games. For this video, I played through the whole thing, and Cervantes and Soul Edge were no joke.
Oh dang, that's like V1 Cervantes?
The
Bro,
game
it's
also
like
introduced
Ghost Rider.
original fighting game concepts that never made it into following games, like being able to disarm opponents with enough attacks, forcing them
Disarm?
to fight barehanded, or locking blades when both players strike exactly.
Bro, that's like fucking beam struggle in Dragon Ball. Oh my god. I mean, the concept is kind of cool, but I mean, what are you gonna do at the end of the day of that thing? Like, both of you like hit a move, and then what? Whoever spams a button more like wins. It's like, okay, it's kind of cheesy.
at the same time. These were some cool ideas, but competitively, I can see how that may not have worked out too well going forward.
Oh, with the ring out. They had the
A
ring
year
out
later,
like the
latest
first
version
game.
of the game was released on PlayStation in Japan and released to the rest of the world in 1997
Soul Blade.
under the name Soul Blade, with a roster
Oh,
of 10
dang.
characters, featuring a few of my personal favorites today, Taki, Mitsurugi, and Songmina, as well as Siegfried, Sophitia, Boldo, Huang, Cervantes, Rock, and Li Long, the original
Not
nunchuck
bad.
wielder before Maxi.
Oh shit, yeah, I remember
The home
Maxi.
release also featured 5 unlockable characters.
Bro, I remember whenever you played Maxi, Maxi was like the Eddie Gordo of Soulcalibur. As long as you just spam some like vertical and horizontal moves, they will probably chain, and sometimes you could throw some kicks in there. And very unsafe, it seemingly, but again, he's just like Eddie Gordo. It's just start spamming some kick moves, and you're good. They'll combo.
Main antagonist Soul Edge, Song Han Myung, 2 different outfit variants for Sophitia for reasons I'm sure we all know.
Oh my
And a
god.
possessed secret, which obviously was a sign of what was to come in later games, building the foundation to creating one of the most iconic characters in the series.
Nightmare.
I never played this game growing up, but its essence and style was continued on through future games in the series, so it's always nice to look back on early ideas that blossomed in later games, making it fun to play around with now, just to see how far things have come. And that opening is legendary.
It's a pretty catchy opening though. I think this is where I came in.
My introduction to the series was with the new revamped version of Soul Edge, renamed Soulcalibur, which
Oh,
is a
no,
mix
I
of
still
the
didn't
old
play.
title and the name of King Arthur's Sword of Legend, Excalibur. This would become the weapon introduced in this game as the ultimate counter to the evil Soul Edge. The game was released in arcades in 1998 and as a home release in 1999 on
Nice.
Sega's brand new console and one of my favorite consoles of all time, the Dreamcast.
Oh shit. Bro, for me, the Dreamcast represented the what was it? It represented Bloody Roar, Power Stone, Sonic. Was it Sonic Adventures, I think? What else? There was a couple other bangers that I played. Crazy Taxi. And a couple other games that I'd have to remember.
Before this time, arcade machines usually ran the superior versions of games in terms of graphics and performance, but in Soulcalibur's case, the Dreamcast version completely eclipsed what was in
Dang.
arcades. The difference here is incredible, and I can't imagine what it would have been like seeing this shift for the first time.
That's crazy.
For as long as I can remember, I always preferred
Yeah.
modern or sci-fi
Sonic,
settings
yep.
more than anything. But with Soulcalibur, that thought never crossed my mind. I was hooked by the music and unique designs for each character. Of course, it's natural for characters in fighting games to differ in fighting style, but something about having different weapon styles in the game was so interesting to me.
Oh yeah.
Especially since the weapons themselves come in all different shapes and sizes, adding even more personality to the characters using them. Playing this game again felt amazing. All the nostalgia rushed back to me as I went through unlocking all the different artwork for the museum and got swept up in the world and characters again.
Nice.
I loved watching the characters' martial arts demonstrations you could catch at the start menu too, which were also unlockable to view at any time. I'd never seen anything like that at the time. I thought it was such a cool idea having each character show off their signature style with such great animation.
That's so cool.
Killit became a character I was very fond of for his overall design and fighting style, along with Song.
Oh, of course, same. When I first played Soulcalibur, it was Soulcalibur 2, and naturally, the big stick guy was my first character. But yeah, Keelik was the bro in the beginning.
Mina, as they shared a lot of moves. Back in the day, this was around the time I really started to get into Kung Fu movies, and it reminded me of the fighters I saw. This game again was led by Hiroaki Toriyama, and he, along with his team, reportedly worked very closely with the Tekken dev team, who recently released the legendary Tekken 3 a year prior, sharing all their ideas in order to craft the best game they could at the time. Looking back, it definitely paid off.
Yep, there it is.
The major new introduction to this game that set it apart from Soul Edge and other fighters like Virtual Fire and Tekken was the 8-way run, a staple feature in the Soulcalibur series now. Instead of the usual movement players had seen in other games, where characters can only move forward, backwards, and step to the left and right, Soulcalibur introduced the ability to freely move in any direction you point your joystick, giving a much more fluid feel to movement.
And that felt really cool. What was it? 8-way run. It's essentially just like a plus sign, and then you turn it a little bit so you got like all the diagonals as well, which allowed for more organic movement in terms of like a 3D space with what he just said, but before it was like forward to backwards and then only left and only like foreground and background. But now you could like dip that way. You kind of dip kind of like at an off angle real close and like kind of dip over here and then over there. Yeah, man, the 8-way run, it just, that's one of the reasons why I felt like when I played Soulcalibur, it felt quicker than Tekken. And I never knew why until like years later. It's like, oh, the 8-way run.
I loved this aspect of the game, and I'm sure a lot of players did at the time too, seeing as it gave a unique approach to positioning your character strategically and feel a larger sense of realism in combat. They also revamped the guard impact ability, adding a more offensive way to use it by parrying your opponent as opposed to only reflecting them. Again, adding more depth to the combat. Instead of Edgemaster mode, Soulcalibur featured a mission mode, which operated in the same way, but instead of collecting different weapons, you unlocked points to buy all the beautiful artwork in the game, and in turn unlock more fights.
Versus Inferno.
The mode starts off with a tutorial for all the game's mechanics, with a very interesting character called Edgemaster, who was said to be someone who collected and mastered a wide variety of weapons. Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Fight!
This was the start of a new age in the series, adding new characters to the mix, like Shanghua, Maxi, Ivy, Astaroth, Killick, Nightmare, Edgemaster, and Lizardman, who were either closely or loosely based on existing characters from the previous game.
Transcending history and the world. A tale
oh, is this 2? Yeah.
Retold.
Bro, this was the coolest thing. I don't know how many hours I spent on Soulcalibur 2, man. And solo as well. Because when Soulcalibur 2 got released, what was it? They released 3 versions for each separate console. One for Xbox, which you had like an additional character, but for the Xbox one was Spawn. And what was it? The PlayStation 2 one was Heihachi. And the Nintendo GameCube one was Link. All like a banger ass characters.
After 3 amazing years of Soulcalibur, it was time for Namco to unveil their new sequel to the series, Soulcalibur 2. This game unexpectedly leaped to a whole new level of popularity among players.
Oh yeah.
After the negative reception of Namco's latest major title, Tekken 4.
Oh.
Tekken 4 was Namco's newfound direction for the series, ushering in a darker, more mature tone. These changes were not just aesthetic either, as they overhauled a lot of the game's core systems.
Oh.
This wasn't something a lot of Tekken
I never
fans
played Tekken 4
at the time, so many stopped playing the game.
Game over.
Yeah.
Now with no Tekken to play, players started to look elsewhere for another fighting game to enjoy. And Soulcalibur 2 couldn't have been released at a better time.
Haven't you had enough?
So good, man. Neck raid.
Yes, this is it.
It was with this legendary game that my love for Soulcalibur solidified.
Oh yeah.
Soulcalibur 2 is the pinnacle of the series for me, as it was one of those games where the developers got just the right balance of gameplay, characters, and presentation, encased in one perfect package. I still remember the days of me running through the arcade mode non-stop, trying out every single character in the game and discovering who I liked most.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing, dude. Like every character, and some were a little easier and harder for me. But I forgot what made me went through the arcade mode. It was like some sort of like unlock that you got like after you beat the arcade with like every character. I think you got like some like art thing or whatever. Probably the same reason. But oh, man, I'm trying to think. Was it middle school? Or I think it was about middle school when Soulcalibur 2 dropped, and the friend group that I had was I think the friend group that I had at the time, they weren't as into fighting games as I was. So like whenever we would get together and play, I would just like run through them, and they're like, okay, we're bored now. So it's like, okay, we'll play something else.
Appreciating the game's beautiful graphics and animation. This time round, Maxi became someone I easily gravitated towards, with his simple yet cool design and eccentric voice lines.
Yeah.
I didn't play her much at the time compared to now, but I also took an interest in Taki.
I mean, like Maxi was like the obvious Bruce Lee knockoff.
Simple fact, she was a cool looking ninja. Like my favorites in other fighting games, Kage from Virtual Fire, and Hayabusa from Dead or Alive.
And Taki was cool just because she did like a bunch of flips and shit. That was literally it for me.
As well as adding 5 more original characters, Necrid, Cassandra, Yunsung, Raphael, and Talim.
Oh fuck, Raphael. Raphael was so good, man. You just literally just reminded me. Oh my god, me and my buddies would hate like the Raphael mirrors. Oh my god, because he was so quick.
Soulcalibur 2 was the first game to introduce guest characters, with each console version getting a unique character. I had the PS2 version with Heihachi,
Yeah.
which is funny now because I didn't know much about the character at the time, since I somehow didn't grow up playing much Tekken.
I played like a little bit of Tekken, but I never played Heihachi because he was like the old man. And yeah, I saw like the electric moves, but then when I learned how to try to play him, I was like, God, I suck too much for this guy. He's too complicated.
What's even more interesting about the PS2 version though,
And also, Heihachi had no weapons, as you can see. So why would you bring a guy with no weapons to a match in a game that like the thing is like weapons fighting?
is according to some reports, Heihachi was a late decision close to the game's release, as initially Namco planned to add Cloud from Final Fantasy VII into the
That would have been so cool. Why didn't we get Cloud?
game. For a now huge FF7 fan like me, that would have been incredible.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe we'll see a character.
I mean, I guess because he's already like the big Cloud is like a big sword guy, but we already had like 2 big sword guys at the time. How much more different could Cloud have been from like Siegfried and Nightmare? I don't know.
From FF7 in one of Bandai Namco's newest titles. The Xbox version included the comic book character Spawn, and the GameCube version topped even that by introducing Link from the Zelda series in the game.
So good.
What a time to be alive that was.
Yeah.
What really made Soulcalibur 2 stand out from everything else, however, was just how good the game felt to play. Hiroaki Toriyama and his team absolutely hit the sweet spot with this game, making the balance between offense and defense equally as fun for both casual and hardcore players.
Yeah. Soulcalibur 2 was one of the first games, I mean, to me. Well, maybe not the first game, because at the time we were also playing like Super Smash Melee. It was another game that nailed the phrase easy to learn, hard to master.
Some things in the game that pro players utilize you could say were bugs, like 2G, step guard, and a few other techniques. But at the end of the day, it's what added to the nuance of the combat for them. And I don't see that as an issue at all, especially if it created depth in the gameplay people could buy into.
Yeah, that move from Raphael, that little step poke, so annoying.
I didn't know a thing about these advanced techniques, but even at that point, I couldn't get enough of trying out all the characters and their unique weapon styles throughout all the different modes. Speaking of different modes, there was a lot of similar content between this game and the first Soulcalibur, although the version in this game is very grindy and not nearly as fun to play through as Soulcalibur 1 in my opinion. I preferred the other way of just unlocking artwork in the previous game, but this version had a larger variety of mission structures and objectives to play through, so there was still a lot of fun to be had. All in all, Soulcalibur 2 was a major success, and withstood the test of time even till today with its unique and nuanced combat system, cementing itself in the competitive scene and creating long-time fans of the series like myself.
I never played the game competitively or anything like that. I mean, it was just me and my friends playing the game.
Out of my way!
It truly is one of the greatest fighting games ever made.
Oh yeah.
But from this point on, how did things come to change?
What happened?
Soulcalibur 3.
I played 3.
This is when things started to go south, as the series began
thought
to
3
slowly
was
fade
alright.
away from the main stage and drift to the state it's in today. Starting off with a genuinely great game, Soulcalibur 3 in 2005. After the boom of Soulcalibur 2, you would expect the series to kick on from there, but unfortunately, this wasn't the case. Content-wise, Soulcalibur 3 was one of the best in the series, offering a generous amount of solo content. Instead of arcade mode, Soulcalibur 3 had Tales of Souls, a mode pretty much like arcade in previous games,
Yeah.
with a little extra, featuring
I think the solo mode was fine. I mean, they say it wasn't arcade mode, but essentially it was just like single player mode.
fights against enemies not on the character roster, and even QuickTime events at several points during your run.
Oh yeah, I remember
I
that.
did like the ending cutscenes for a lot of the characters too. They're cheesy and fun and do a nice job adding a lot of personality to each character. Something this game did especially best. It also featured a completely new game mode called Chronicles of the Sword.
I don't remember this part of the game. Maybe because I didn't play it that much, but if this is the case, then this is like a huge fumble. Like, if I'm buying a fighting game, all I want to do is buy and play a fighting game. Like, why are you dedicating resources to like a completely other genre?
Which was a strategy mode where you controlled a created character and allies to seize all enemy bases on the map. Personally, it wasn't anything amazing, but it's a decent change of pace from other things. It doesn't end there with the content either, as there was also a tournament mode and the Soul Arena,
Oh
which was a
shit.
game mode full of all kinds of mission-based battles, similar to
Zasalamel. Oh yeah. He was like Scythe Bro.
what was in the RPG modes of the last two games.
Do you now understand the difference between us?
Huang and Li Long from earlier games were brought back, and new characters Zasalamel, Tira, Amy, and Setsuko
Oh yeah, the hula hoop girl, umbrella dagger lady.
were added to the game too, who I think were fantastic additions in both their look and unique weapons they wielded. Okadan and Abyss were also new characters, but
What, bro? What is this? I never played this. I don't think I ever unlocked Albro. Shield and Sword Albro? What the fuck?
Okadan used everyone's fighting styles, just
Oh.
like Edgemaster in previous games.
Oh, he was like that wood guy, because a lot of the Soulcalibur games had like some or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. What am I thinking of? It's Tekken. Had the wood guy, but he just randomed some like character or whatever. And as soon as like you like zoom in to like the character like start screen, and it's like he starts like bouncing around for like whatever character, it's like, okay, I'm playing that character, and you know, just like instantly, if you got beat by anybody that was playing like the all random character, you knew that guy was good.
And Abyss fought exactly like Zasalamel, with just a
I never unlocked this dude.
handful of new moves. Soulcalibur 3 was also the first game in the franchise with character creation.
Oh
where you
yeah,
could
I remember
create a new
this.
character entirely, as opposed to other fighting games with character creation at the time, like Virtua Fighter 4 and Tekken 5. This went on to become one of the biggest and well-received features in the franchise.
I liked this. The fact that you had, like, look at this head, hair, mask, chin. Like look at all this shit that you can like customize, bro. If you release this game like in modern day times, bro, it would be like microtransaction city, like everywhere. Like, oh, look at our new fucking outfit that we released. It's like it'd be like $2 for this, $2 for that, $2 for this, $2 for that. All together, we're gonna sell you this fantastic deal, this entire outfit for the low price of $50. And then, oh, you can get like this game is so primed to be a live service, it's incredible that it wasn't. Like, you could have a fucking battle pass for like 500 fucking levels, a premium battle pass with another 500 levels. Every level you get like a new little piece to add to like some dude. It's crazy. Like, oh, if you want the Swordmaster 3, you better. But in this game, how you unlocked a lot of this stuff was like just playing the game.
Soulcalibur 3 also swayed away from guest characters being added to the roster, but added clothing items in the customization to design them instead, giving players a chance to design Cosmos from the Xenosaga series, which was very cool.
Really?
At first glance, you could easily say Soulcalibur 3 was almost the same as 2, with even more content.
Yeah.
Which in many ways would be the best possible sequel, but that changed following the game's release, as things slowly started to take a turn for the worst. A contributing factor to the game's downfall seemed to have been a lack of an arcade version.
Oh.
In that era of gaming, you could say the beta testing grounds for fighting games were the arcades, as many games received several updates based on player feedback, before finally porting the games in their best versions to consoles.
Oh, okay.
Had Soulcalibur 3 hit arcades and faced the criticism of the hardcore audience in response to its fighting system, the devs may have made some changes to the home release that could have changed this game's fate.
Oh.
Fight.
Again, in 2005, I was not plugged into the internet, so I had no idea what was going on outside of my friend circle in regards to like video games and whatnot.
After playing this game myself, I noticed it didn't feel the same way as Soulcalibur 2. I know this is a very vague way to describe it, but I'm sure people could understand. It may also be down to the character balance and moveset changes, but overall the game lacks the same magic. This is really weird, as the lead producer behind all the games so far, Hiroaki Toriyama, worked on it. You could say the two games aren't vastly different on the surface, but the differences that are there pulled this one away from what made Soulcalibur 2 so great. Even though Soulcalibur 3 had a mountain of content for casual players to have fun with, there were changes made to the game that made it quite unattractive to the competitive scene.
Really?
To name a few things, Soulcalibur 3 removed techniques like advancing and retreating guard, step guarding, and guard impact mind games surrounding the 2G technique.
Oh shit.
In addition to all those changes, it was specific bugs and glitches in the game that ultimately destroyed its reputation in the eyes of some casual players and most competitive players for both.
Bro, I wasn't even paying attention to the competitive scene in Soulcalibur 3. Like, I had no idea what the hell was going on. I mean, dang.
Completely different reasons. For the home release, there was a massive memory glitch that would corrupt all player data, causing the player to lose everything, from their progress in all modes down to all their saved created characters.
Oh, that sucks.
I didn't have the game back then to experience something like that, but I can imagine it would have been extremely annoying. As for the competitive players, they found a bug later known as the variable cancel, or VC for short, that was similar to 2G in Soulcalibur 2, which was a technique
I don't even know what fucking 2G is.
to cancel certain moves into a guard state, but completely broken this time, allowing players to cancel out of pretty much any animation at any time for any reason.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the right for our crew.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I understand. That's all I care about.
It was clearly a problem.
Wow.
And it,
Bro, I don't know. This may not be like a hot take. I don't think so. But the fact that ring outs, like stages that have ring outs, are just legal stages to play competitively is fucking stupid. I don't care that it's an intended game mechanic. I literally don't care, because if you're like chunking away like a dude's health, like let's say you're about to get like a perfect on him, but for some reason like you just misread at the last second and he starts comboing you and he gets like the right angle and there's like no wall right here, he can just like ground bounce you, start juggling you, like, and take you to a ring out, and like that feels like dog shit.
wasn't the only one. Surprisingly, Namco finally released an arcade version of the game 6 months later, fixing the VC bug, tweaking the overall gameplay feel, and rebalancing a lot of characters. Even with all their efforts to rebuild the reputation of the game at the time, The release didn't amount to much, and with the home console version only being on the PS2 right before the release of the PS3 and Xbox 360, the game was doomed, and the start of Soulcalibur's decline began.
Oh,
that
shit.
future starts right here, right now.
Despite all these
Bro, that's so funny. She's like carrying the dang thing in just a satchel.
issues, the game is still a lot of fun to play, especially with all its single-player content, with many people claiming it as their favorite in the series, even coming off the back of Soul Calibur 2. But with the next game, I couldn't say the same.
Oh shit.
3 years later, Soul Calibur 4 was released, and with the game being the first in the franchise on next-gen hardware, we all saw a massive upgrade in the graphics.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion, even more of a downgrade when it came to the gameplay.
I'm not afraid anymore.
I think I do remember getting Soul Calibur 4. I do remember it.
On a positive note, Soul Calibur 4 was the first with the armor break system, which was...
Oh yeah, with like these little dots right here. The armor break system, like if you did enough damage to the person's head or like upper torso, they would break their head, and you could do like more damage to them, but or if you like break like the middle pieces, like you did like a bunch of like chest damage or stomach damage, you like break this middle piece. If you did enough like low damage, you could break like the bottom pieces, and then once all three pieces were like broken, you could do like even more damage.
Cool to see the battle damage mid-fight, adding to the improved visuals of the game. And the character customization was really fleshed out.
Oh yeah,
all the weapons having
having all the character customization was really cool. And you had this like one mode to where you could like mess with like the damage, defense, and HP of your character, of like your favorite character. There were like multiple game modes in this game, if I remember. And there was like this mode where you could like completely customize your character, and you could play with like your own like souped up character and whatnot, and then bring it to your buddy's house and be like, okay, my souped up character versus you souped up character, and you just go. But I don't remember, and this is just like a mode that you can play. I don't think this was like the competitive mode. There were modes where it was just like basic character stats, and I don't remember if it had even like the basic mode had like what do you call it, the armor break system,
different stats and buffs on single player modes that allowed them, which was similar to how different weapons were in Soul Calibur 2 and 3, but more developed this time.
Always all attack.
You could even
don't put any points in defense or HP. All attack.
Unlock a few pre-made custom characters designed by several guest artists, although they shared the same movesets with already existing characters.
Save the formalities. Let's fight.
Even more new characters were added here, this time being Algol and Hilda, both with completely unique fighting styles.
Oh yeah.
Unlike
Hilda was the character that broke the game because you could essentially get a ring out. Like if the stage had a ring out area, all you would have to do is just land this one combo and you could get a ring out from like the middle of the stage. It was crazy.
Like Soul Calibur 3, this game brought back guests, somehow featuring characters from Star Wars this time. At the time, I couldn't actually believe it.
Darth Vader and Yoda, and what was it, Starkiller.
And it's still crazy to see Darth Vader, Yoda, and Starkiller in a fighting game.
So good. So cool,
the story
man.
mode here was basically arcade mode with a few cutscenes, somewhat concluding the Soul Edge saga that had been built up over all the previous games.
Yeah.
With Siegfried finally defeating Nightmare and completely destroying Soul Edge. It still stayed true to the series' idea of sticking with one character at a time, seeing how Soul Edge affected their lives in one way or another.
Our kind should not exist in this world. Not ever again.
The only other single player mode here was the Tower mode, similar to what you would find in Mortal Kombat games, with different missions to complete during fights on every floor. These were cool,
yeah.
But again, I wasn't a big fan of the way the game felt to play, so it didn't grab my attention for long.
Essentially, that was my what do you call it? That was my strategy to winning most matches. Just push the character or guard impact the character to the edge and just try to get a ring out, because depending like on what level of the tower you were at, the AI would just get like really harder at some point.
Ring out.
Another big addition was the inclusion of online versus modes, catching up to other games like Mortal Kombat Deception and Dead or Alive Ultimate for the Xbox that had online functionality in the tail end of the previous generation. As for this game's unique mechanics, they didn't impress much either. Like I mentioned before, this game featured an armor break system, but they also added a new technique called critical finish.
Get ready.
Oh, what was this? Oh yeah, this was like the ultimate. Remember how like in a what was it, like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you had like different supers, and then you had like a couple level 1s and then like a level 3. So this is like essentially like a level 3 super or ultimate in this case. And I don't think you could, like, there was like a gauge at the bottom or some shit, and you could only do this, I think, when the person was like at low health.
Prepare to die. Be gone.
Critical finish was an interesting concept, but I think it was poorly executed. While I played, it almost never happened, and the animations for them weren't amazing enough for them to be so rare during gameplay.
Yet another opponent unworthy of my blade.
Although I could forgive a lot of these shortcomings, one thing I couldn't get over is how sluggish Soulcalibur 4 felt. Earlier I praised Soulcalibur 2 for its fast and fluid gameplay, and even though it wasn't exactly the same, Soulcalibur 3 somewhat continued that, and still remained a very fun game to fight in. But with Soulcalibur 4, they completely changed things, and
if anything, all of this talk about the game feels off, the game feels sluggish, so on and so forth, it just feels like the game developer is essentially slowing the game down for the casual audience. And because like when you're looking for feedback from as like a developer, you're gonna look to like the most public sources that you can get public feedback. You're not looking to get feedback from like, well, you want feedback from like ideally everybody from like all skill levels, but the easiest source of feedback to get is like public. And what forms of things happen in public? Well, tournaments. And tournaments, like what kind of people are you going to find at tournaments? You're going to find the best players, like if not like at minimum, like at least like mid-level players at a tournament. You're not going to find like a day one person. You're not going to find their feedback for your game. You're probably going to find like some mid-level or like some high-level people playing your game. And when you do that, and when you see what's happening to your game, and you're just going to make the game more, you're going to make changes to the game based off of what you see. And if all you see is tournament play, well, then your changes are probably going to be skewed, because like the players, at least at like the mid-range and like the high level, they're always going to try to figure out how to like take advantage of whatever system. And that, like in the early games, it was 2G or whatever it was, and then it was a variable cancel in the next game, and you know they probably patch that out or whatever. So when the game starts to feel slower and slower, the game just feels worse.
I didn't like it. The direction this game went in seemed to focus more on attacking to break your opponent's guard, rather than using the 8-way run, or walk in this game's case, to position yourself well enough to evade attacks while being able to land your pokes. It's much more aggressive in the sense that you throw out more attacks naturally, but the action isn't as fluid as previous games.
Yeah.
Also, Soulcalibur 4 took out being able to make the characters say something before fights started. I don't know why, because that was always a funny and unique thing the games had going.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was weird. That was the versus screen. Yeah, like the earlier Soulcaliburs, you could like, what was it? Like you could mess with their faces and make them do different faces or make them say something different. Why would they change that? Was it like that much extra like effort to just not include that, or like to include that?
Soulcalibur 4 was generally received well, mostly getting praise for the Star Wars collaboration and online functionality. But I personally feel like this is the worst entry to the series yet after looking at the bigger picture. If the series continue like this gameplay wise, I think it would be in a much darker place. Having said that though, the next game may have tried even harder to alienate the fans of earlier games.
I don't think I played Soulcalibur 5. This is where I just
4
dipped out.
years later, Soulcalibur 5 was introduced. And this was a really weird one. I never got to play the game at the time, so I didn't know much about it until playing recently. I was so shocked after going straight to the character select screen to try out how different Taki was in this game, only to find out she was a completely different character altogether, replaced with a newer generation ninja called Natsu. It wasn't just her too. Songmina, Changhua, Sophitia, Cassandra, Zasalamel, Talim, and Yunsong were all missing.
I wonder why that was, to like just change up the characters. Like, because I mean, if the moveset is essentially the same, why would you go ahead and change like the name and the look of the character?
The game was clearly trying to bring in a new generation, but only replace some of the characters? Strange.
Yeah.
These new characters played the same as the ones they replaced, with some changes, which isn't entirely uncommon. But I like seeing my favorite characters progress through each game, receiving fun and exciting new changes to their designs, along with adding new layers to their personality.
Are you ready to die?
I don't think the idea of introducing Sophitia's children, Patroclus and Pyrrha, as new characters was a bad idea, but they could have stood alongside the rest of the iconic cast. The idea of them having different forms as completely new characters was cool too, but lacked the same impact the duo of Siegfried and Nightmare brought to the table.
Yeah. I mean, because look at Street Fighter. All those characters are essentially the same since you first saw them like get introduced in the like, whatever game they got introduced in. Like Ryu is still Ryu, Ken is still Ken. Yes, he can like age like a little bit or have longer hair or shorter hair or whatever. He could be more buff or less buff, but essentially he's the same age.
Back with Tekken 3, Namco made the bold decision to directly replace the main character Kazuya with his son, Jin. But in this case, it went extremely well, because Jin stood on his own as a new protagonist, with a familiar yet different iconic style and silhouette, separate from Kazuya, something Soulcalibur 5 completely missed the mark on with their new characters. As for other characters, I thought Viola and her crystal ball style was an interesting concept that could be expanded on in the future, but on the other hand, Zwei, to me, was such a bland character. It almost felt like I wasn't even looking at Soulcalibur game anymore with the direction they went in with some of these characters. What's funny is, gameplay wise, I think the game felt...
Bro, you know what that dude like reminded me of? It reminded me of like some JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character where he has like a, what was it called? Like they're like ghost people or whatever. They just summoned. That's what he feels like he got ripped out of. He got ripped out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and just put in Soulcalibur.
Felt better than Soulcalibur 4, with a noticeable increase in speed and the removal of critical finishes in favor of a flashy ultimate move called Critical Edge. It was a lot like what we see in 2D fighting games, and similar to Rage Arts in Tekken 7.
Yeah.
Battle rages on. Stand up and show your strength.
For anyone wondering, that is Devil Jin from Tekken.
Really?
Not exactly him. In Soulcalibur 5, his fighting style was available for created characters.
Bro, it's like he's just like guy with chains on his arms and black pants. Where is like the effort to put into like his character design? Is this his base character design? This feels really lazy. I mean, at least they have like a meter, so I guess that's good.
So you could say that technically he was the game's guest character, alongside Ezio Auditore, the protagonist introduced in Assassin's Creed 2, a fan favorite.
Oh yeah.
I actually liked playing with Ezio in this game. He had fun little gimmicks in his moveset that were great to play around with, and he just looks cool, which is all you need.
Oh yeah, you have to play, whenever you're trying to figure out a character to play in a fighting game, you have to pick the character that looks the coolest to you, and you have to stick by it. All right. And I can 100% understand why people would pick Ezio. Not only, I mean, because if you play like any of the Assassin's Creed games with him in it, he was like the ladies' man. He's like the 007 of just assassins, essentially. He's a good talker. He's athletic. He kills people, and he's good with the ladies.
Requiescat in pace.
And that's pretty cool. They got like, it sounds like they got the original voice actor too.
The game had some very nice stages too, some that I wish came back in Soulcalibur 6. Graphics wise, this wasn't a massive jump from the last game, but they added some nice effects to movements and attacks that I enjoyed seeing, as well as some dynamic stages like the cage that unfolded as you slammed your opponents into the walls. Similar to the one in Soulcalibur 4, just better looking. One thing I didn't like about the gameplay though, was the decision to make guard impact something you needed meter to use. It really limited how often you could use it. And as a major feature in the Soulcalibur series, it was really weird to not have it available to use at any opportunity.
That's weird.
I don't know how things went down in the professional scene, but I'm sure this made matches a lot less exciting, as it easily brings down the mind games that came out of fast exchanges of guard impacts in earlier games.
Huh.
As for the story, Soulcalibur 5 took a different approach in its focus, following both Pyrrha and Patroclus on their twisted journey. It's mainly told through a slideshow of images, which isn't...
Yeah, like, we've already had like adventures with like the same characters for like what is this, 5? For about 4 games, and they concluded it with 4, it seems. So, I mean, and their whole thing was like the Soul Edge. What was it? The Soul Edge and Soulcalibur swords, like just fighting to the death and whatnot. And then you got the duel that was concluded. But I don't think they really wrote a story after that Siegfried had beat Nightmare. This kind of just seems like they're just scrambling to figure out what to write. And it's like, okay, the character's got to have kids, and then we're just going to put the kids in there, and then the kids are going to have the adventure. And it's like, you're like midway through, I don't know, like because I don't know how many more Soulcaliburs they came out like after 5. Like right as you peak, you just change up the story, and with like so many characters being like replaced, it just seems like not the right move.
Great, but there are some cutscenes here and there. It isn't memorable and doesn't do any of the characters any favors.
Oh yeah, in this type of storytelling where it's like a couple sentences and like just a picture
in terms of making them interesting to follow.
Kali Yuga's owner is waiting outside.
In the end, this game didn't deliver and faded into obscurity.
Yeah, it kind of seems like lazy storytelling when you have like something like this,
along with the Soulcalibur name, for quite some time. Outside of the mainline games, the Soulcalibur series has seen a few other titles.
Really?
Some being fighting games, and the others being a different genre entirely. It goes without saying that most of these didn't go well, but it's interesting to have a look at what Bandai Namco...
They must not have gone well, because I didn't know anything about the side stories or the side spin-offs of Soulcalibur
was trying to do back then. There was a period where every fighting game had a weird trend of doing solo action and adventure games.
Yeah.
Some were great, and some, what?
I played this one.
Mortal Kombat had Shaolin.
I played that fucking Mortal Kombat 3D adventure game bullshit. And at the time, we thought it was like weird, but okay. Me and my buddy Alex.
Monks, Tekken had Death by Degrees. Dead or Alive eventually gave us Ninja Gaiden's reboot.
Well, yeah.
A great trilogy. And Soulcalibur gave us Legends.
What the hell is Legends?
This game played like your typical hack and slash adventure, only this time the controls were tied to motion controls, as it was a game released on Nintendo's extremely popular console.
Oh yeah.
Surprisingly, this game also featured a guest character.
Oh, it's what was it, Lloyd from Tales of Symphonia, I think.
And this time it was Lloyd Irving from Tales of Symphonia.
Yeah,
which was nice
I remember.
to see, and very fitting actually.
Is that a Rathlos from Monster Hunter? No.
The game didn't score too well with reviewers though, as the controls were seen as very janky and the story was nothing to write home about. After playing it for a while myself, I actually thought the game wasn't that bad. Each character had unique strengths and abilities picked out of their movesets from the main games, which was cool to see.
Okay.
However, it didn't help it from eventually getting monotonous, and the motion controls didn't work too well at the time. But I could see a younger me having a good amount of fun with it.
Yeah. Like when you're a little kid, you don't really have any concept of like what's good and what's bad, or what makes something good and what makes something bad. You usually just eat whatever's on your plate, even if it's shit.
The story though was definitely something not even worth talking about. But someone out there might like seeing an expansion of the Soulcalibur lore. Also, the music was really good in this game. It sounds familiar to Soulcalibur 2 and 3 songs, but with enough of a difference to stand on its own. Above all else, this actually made me want another action-adventure spin-off from that Soulcalibur series, but done well this time. Like a Ninja Gaiden game with Taki as the main character.
Oh, okay. Bro, this looks like Monster Hunter, but with Soulcalibur.
Soulcalibur Broken Destiny, probably the biggest spin-off title, was released in the year 2009 for the PSP. This game also featured a new character alongside its guest for the game, unlike the other spin-offs. This new character was an eccentric man named Palmieri, who had a unique clown-like fighting style that could be used to catch opponents completely off guard with his tricks. As for the guest, the game featured Kratos from the God of War series.
Oh shit.
Which again, was such a great idea as a guest character for Soulcalibur.
Oh yeah.
His moves were all nods to the techniques and weapons he's used in several games, and it's so great to see.
Bro, including like having the guest characters are like is so cool. Whenever you have a like just you pick any fighting game and then pick your favorite series like game or IP or brand or whatever, and then add like a couple characters from your favorite game into the fighting game, it's just better.
However, what let this game down for me was its framework. It's derived from Soulcalibur 4, which obviously carried over the weird sluggish movement from the game that
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of personally, and the game had no multiplayer functionality.
That's lame.
2012 saw the release of Soulcalibur Mobile, a Java game based around Soulcalibur 4. This was a 2D sprite-based
Oh Jesus. A pay-to-win Soulcalibur game? Jesus.
game that still kind of used 3D mechanics to move left, right, up, and down on the stage, but
Really?
had watered-down movesets to fit the mobile gameplay, and had a limited character roster. I downloaded the game and gave it a try myself, and it's as you would expect from a mobile Java game from 2012.
Oh Jesus.
I still felt compelled to beat the arcade though, and mashed my way through to the end.
2012. What types of phones did we have in 2012? Did we have like smartphones or was it like half like N-Gage? What do you call it? Like Razor flip phone? Was it those phones that were like just had like a big top screen, but you still had like a keyboard at the bottom, like the Blackberries or whatever?
I'm not too sure how this game was received, but it's just a harmless game to distract you for a few minutes with a shorter version of Soulcalibur 4 story,
Yeah.
coupled with a surprising amount of effort put into the movesets and animations.
Oh, that's not bad.
In 2013,
HD
to many
Online?
people's surprise, Soulcalibur 2 HD Online was released.
Oh.
As the title suggests, it was a HD version of the critically acclaimed original, released on PS3 and Xbox 360.
Oh, that's pretty
this
cool.
time with online functionality. The game was
How was this received?
relatively well, and although being the same Soulcalibur 2 we knew and loved, with even the inclusion of both Heihachi and Spawn on the same version,
Okay.
it was let down by its sometimes laggy new online features.
Ah, the netcode was the thing that held it back, I would imagine.
Unfortunately, the game is no longer available to access, as it was removed from the PlayStation Store in 2021 and delisted from the Xbox Marketplace in May of 2022.
Lame.
Just a year later, in 2014, Soulcalibur Lost Souls was released for the PlayStation 3, a free-to-play fighting game based off of Soulcalibur 5. Oddly enough, it was single-player only, with no multiplayer features, for a fighting game in 2014.
What? I didn't even know that came out.
This game had you choose from either Mitsurugi, Siegfried, and Sophitia, and began a journey collecting new weapons and materials for crafting. During this adventure, you also had the opportunity to unlock a healthy amount of characters to use later on. It's clear to see as a free-to-play game, it was focused around microtransactions, mainly around the customization options you could purchase for your characters. With its removal of core systems like multiplayer modes or even ring outs, it's no surprise this game was hit with a barrage of negative reviews.
Yep, that's fair. Just consequences for the developers' decisions.
And was subsequently closed down after just a year. Within the same year, Soulcalibur Unbreakable Soul was released, and this time Soulcalibur fans were greeted with a card game released exclusively on iOS. I couldn't try this
mobile
game out at all, but it seems like players didn't take too kindly to this title after looking through Metacritic, with some saying it was dull and disappointing.
Card game Soulcalibur? These guys are just fishing for something to hit, it seems.
Just as shadows are cast where there is light, history hides away more than one truth.
6 years after the release of Soulcalibur 5, the longest gap between two mainline games, Soulcalibur 6 was introduced.
It's a rebuilding period. It's time to rebuild the game
to the world. Using Unreal Engine 4, the game boasted graphics on a level even better than the current most popular 3D fight at the time, Tekken 7.
Okay.
Ah, sister, why are you here?
Enough. Let's go back home.
Instead of carrying on from the lore introduced in Soulcalibur 5, Soulcalibur 6 acted as a reboot in the series, taking us back to the events between Soul Edge and the first Soulcalibur, which, after seeing how Soulcalibur 5 went down, was a great idea. A reason for the longer wait this time could have been because Bandai Namco were mostly against releasing another game for the series after Soulcalibur 5 completely failed in terms of sales. However, Soulcalibur 6 was championed by its new lead producer, Motohiro Okubo, a former Tekken 7 producer who strived to bring the franchise back to its former glory, along with the backing of current director and chief producer of the Tekken series, Katsuhiro Harada. Okubo even stated that the game's codename was Luxor, due to his and the rest of the team's intentions to bring the series back to the
a measure of the amount of light produced by something.
Look and feel of the first Soulcalibur.
A Luxor engine. Alright.
I hoped this game would be the one to revitalize the series, taking advantage of the road Tekken 7 paved for 3D fighting games in this current generation. And after playing it when it finally released, I was happy to see the game was fun, and was the closest thing gameplay wise to Soulcalibur 2, especially in
so I take it they kept the speed of Soulcalibur 2, but I don't know what they did with like the guard impacts or whatever. But it seems like there's enough visuals in the game that are like appealing. It kind of seems like there might be a little too much, but I mean, I don't know.
In terms of movement for me. Going back to this game after playing 4 and 5 recently for this video was like finally being let free to move around exactly how I liked without being weighed down. Outside of the regular online and versus modes, the game featured 2 story modes like many games in the past. One following your created character on an adventure through the world of Soulcalibur, getting stronger along the way, and the other for playing through the main storyline, mostly featuring the trio of Kilik, Changhua, and Maxi, with standalone stories for every character on their journey surrounding the hunt for Soul Edge over several years.
Bro, the one time I went to like a fighting game tournament, like a couple years ago, I went to like CEO. I forgot what year, but like I remember that the CEO tournament had Soulcalibur 6 in there. So there's got to be like some community of people that still like and play Soulcalibur 6, at least to like some sort of competitive degree. So I don't think it's all bad for 6.
It brought back that RPG aspect that Soulcalibur 5 completely lacked.
Whatever we do, I think our paths will cross at some point.
These modes aren't crazy and didn't capture my attention long, But one thing that did was the game's character creation. It's very similar to what you can find in Soulcalibur 3, 4, and 5.
Nice.
But compared to current games like Tekken 7 at the time, it still boasted the best you could find in my opinion, and should be praised more for it. I didn't make too many custom characters.
I mean, because honestly, when you compare the character customization in a fighting game like this to literally any FPS game, this game blows out of the water every FPS game. Well, besides the main difference of you can see your character in a fighting game, but you can't really see your character in like an FPS or whatever. You can only see everybody else's character. That being the main difference. But even by like those standards, like this is like unheard of with how much like customization that is just in here. I mean, I don't know how many like microtransactions or whatever is also in here. There's probably got to be like some degree, but when I engage with like the character customization in Soulcalibur, I remember if I wanted a piece of equipment or something to look cool, I could just play either like the single player mode or whatever and just go get it. Like unlock all the weapons, unlock all the equipments that I wanted to make my character like look some different way. And I mean, at least with the colors, like you can choose like to customize each piece with whatever color. I mean, shit, if this was fucking like Valorant or some shit, they charge you like $20 for like some blue bundle to have like some blue guns or whatever. And it's like, or if this was Halo, they would have charged you an arm and a leg, like $5 for like a blue piece of like forearm armor that can only be used on like one category of armor, and then you'd have to buy like the same piece of forearm armor for like the next piece, like next category of armor. So like you have to commend Soulcalibur for having like a decent custom or character customization model.
As myself though, since I had more fun creating new costumes for some of my favorite characters in the series. As usual, with the new game came new characters, and at launch the game introduced 3, Grow, Aswell, and a surprising but again very fitting guest character, Geralt of Rivia, from the Witcher series. Grow was a cool looking character to me in terms of his weapon style, but ultimately he seemed out of place with his design.
What? He's got like a dual blade thing, like fucking Thanos with his like double-sided sword or whatever. Like this seems like knockoff Darth Maul essentially with his dual sword thing.
Show me what you got.
So with the game being well made on the technical side of things and ticking most of the right boxes for fans of the series, what went wrong? Why are we not
Voldo is still there? Fantastic.
Seeing anything to do with this game anymore? I believe this game was a victim of cruel coincidences, some being at no fault of its own.
Oh yeah, Evo. This shit was in fucking Evo. Fantastic.
Evo is the largest fighting game tournament in the world.
Yeah.
With the last one in the summer of 2023 hosting over 9,100 attendees. Eager to compete and
largest fighting game tournament, largest open fighting game tournament. You can just walk in, sign up to any game, and just go. There's no invitation. There's no qualifier, pre-qualifier, whatever. You just sign up and you go. Provided you have like some means of like travel to get there. That's what's really cool. I think that's like the coolest thing about like the fighting game community, dude, is like it's seemingly easier to set up like some fighting game tournament than you just need people. You need bodies. And you need like bodies, you need marketing, and if you want to play in the tournament, you just go there. But it's a little more complicated, it seems, with like shooting games, which is really sad.
Enjoy what is now also a convention. Soulcalibur 6 only managed to feature in one Evo as a main stage title since its release in 2018. That being just a few months after it released.
2019.
It would have featured again in the 2020 Evo, as it was announced in the lineup for main stage games, but the current state of the world at the time didn't allow for things to return to normal.
Yeah.
The pandemic caused the world to pause, and most people spent a long period of time at home. EVO never gave up on holding the tournament at this time, and proposed an online event instead, which was great for players but wasn't in Soulcalibur 6's favor, since the delay-based netcode the game was released with just wasn't reliable enough to play a large-scale tournament on, or even good enough for many players to be attracted to play on during lockdown.
What's that one netcode that like all the good fighting games use? Isn't it like good game, peace out, GGPO or something? I could be wrong, but that's like, I saw like a video that it's like, this is the best netcode, and I was like, okay.
Going forward, things snowballed from there, seeing Soulcalibur 6 move down the pecking order in favor for newer games. Throughout this time, the game did still receive several new patches and very exciting characters throughout its season pass, like Tira, Amy, Cassandra, Hilda, Setsuka, and Huang, who hadn't been featured in the game for many years, as well as two amazing guest characters, Haomaru from Samurai Showdown, and everyone's favorite, 2B, who is a beloved character among many video game fans, but was polarizing when it came to her balance in the game.
Initiating attack program.
We will continue
Fuck?
to fight.
That's a long ass combo. What, was she just like too good? I mean, if there's ever a character that's like a standout type character where they're like grossly outperforming everyone else, then you just like ban the character for tournament play.
As an overall package for a fighting game, it wasn't the greatest, especially in comparison to titles before it in the series. But what it was to me was a massive step in the right direction for the series, and a game I always have fun playing, even now. Although despite the efforts from Okubo and his team, it seems the damage to the series Soulcalibur 5 made especially couldn't have been overcome with a game like this. The game went on to sell 2 million copies worldwide, as reported by Bandai Namco, which was labeled successful, but the game received no support past that point. And
bro, I couldn't imagine playing this like Soulcalibur in like modern day, because if I were to like try to get into this game like with my old school fighting game friends, and like it seems like whenever they like start to rip like a big ass combo, they got like to say a sentence or some shit. I will vanquish the evil of the ages or some shit. I'd be yelling that shit to my buddy in real life. Oh my god. Because like a lot of other fighting games, the characters are mostly silent, you know, besides the general like grunts and like hit stun and attack animation like sounds that you make like during fighting. But like the Soulcalibur characters are over here like about to give you a goddamn monologue as they're like comboing your dumb ass, dude. Oh my god.
The lead producer, Motohiro Okubo, announced he'd be leaving Bandai Namco just a month later. It's clear the game wasn't successful enough for Bandai to continue to work on in the same way they did for Tekken 7, and I fear they may not return to the series for a very long time, especially after seeing someone so enthusiastic about improving the reputation of the franchise leaving the company.
Ooh, what's next? The conclusion.
Even with the series in the state it's in today, I can't imagine this is truly the end. Somewhere, somehow, there's an idea for Soulcalibur 7 just waiting to be realized, and I'm waiting for the day that comes. But what could the game look like? What direction would they take the series? I would like to think Bandai would continue off the back of the framework Soulcalibur 6 introduced, as it brought back that free-flowing and fast gameplay a lot of players longed for.
Yeah.
This coupled with rollback netcode and improved character creation would definitely be a great start. However, how far they go with anything else may hinge on how much the game is backed by Bandai.
Doesn't Bandai Namco have like 2 fighting games under their belt? They got Tekken and Soulcalibur.
Tekken 8 is here, and it seems like easily the most expensive Tekken game we've ever seen.
Yeah.
With a wealth of content both online and offline for players to enjoy. This was well deserved, and logically speaking the natural next step for Tekken, seeing how well Tekken 7 did both in sales and popularity amongst the FGC. Unfortunately, you can't say the same for Soulcalibur 6. so I highly doubt a sequel would get even half as much backing. But let's dream a little and talk about what I'd really love to see in Soulcalibur 7.
I mean, if you're like Bandai Namco and you're already killing it with Tekken 8, like why wouldn't you put like at least like some money into like the development of the next Soulcalibur? I mean, yeah, there's a chance to like fail, but I don't know, man. I think there's like Soulcalibur is still like, I think it's still like a good like core fighting game. Like, I don't know.
First off, from a visual standpoint, I would love for the graphics to evolve again, but more importantly, I would love a rework of the art style. Although I think the current style is nice, I think it'll be nice to try a different look, moving away from the big-eyed anime look into something similar to what we saw in Soulcalibur 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, okay.
Or even something close to what we're seeing in Tekken 8.
Yeah, that could work.
I like more of what I mentioned before. That fast, free-flowing gameplay Soulcalibur 6 brought back, which was the closest thing the series felt like since Soulcalibur 2. As for all the system mechanics 6 brought along too, I wouldn't mind seeing all of them make a return, although Reversal Edge could be swapped out for a new mechanic, in order to change up the formula for a new game in a fun and interesting way.
Like a book.
As for single player content, I of course would like the return of RPG-like modes present in older titles, with more fun and unique minigames and missions.
Yeah,
but
just make the game fun. It doesn't have to be serious, because you already have that serious aspect in either like your regular ranked mode or ranked ladder or whatever. That can be like your ranked mode, but just have like the fun stuff, the mini games, the character customization with it, where you can like have like a fully juiced out character with like max attack and defense and health and whatever.
I still would like to see a story similar to what Soulcalibur 5 and 6 did, but fun this time, including all characters on the roster.
Yeah.
Pretty much like what we're seeing.
I mean, look at what fucking Injustice did, the Injustice story. What else? The Mortal Kombat story. I mean, Mortal Kombat story is like never ending.
With Tekken 8.
Excellent.
I feel like that's one aspect the Soulcalibur series lacked. Those interactions between all the characters in the game that really bring out their personalities and appeal to all kinds of players, making them fall in love with the roster.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a massive difference in the setting between Tekken and Soulcalibur, but there are ways to really hone in on the characters' personalities within any story. Soulcalibur's story could easily fit in an RPG, and I think giving a new Soulcalibur game a proper overarching story, jumping from character to character while they form alliances and rivalries, would be really fun.
100%.
It's for your own good. What was that for?
It's not like they haven't tried to do this either.
Yeah.
Like I've shown earlier in this video, the story modes in most of the games actually do attempt this. But they either don't focus on the characters themselves enough in favor of a variety of missions and weapon collecting, or simply...
Yeah, if you do make a Soulcalibur 7, do not add like some fucking RTS bullshit game mode. Like, please no.
aren't written well.
Xianglin?
These are fighting games after all, so great story mode content isn't that common in the genre. But nowadays, more and more titles are putting in a big effort when it comes to diving deep into the lore they built up over the years, in order to showcase their characters in many fun ways, even outside of fights.
My child.
Silence! So this is the new host.
You have done well.
Yeah, because this, like, the single player content is optional and is not forced upon the player. It gives the player the option to like just organically experience the content themselves. So then when they see like, oh, they'll like the new like story mode or whatever, where you have to play as like all the characters and whatnot, it's just like a breath of fresh air, honestly. Because I don't know, like most people don't look to fighting games for like a good story, but if there happens to be a good story in a fighting game, it's only good.
So that's it. The story of Soulcalibur so far. Over the years, these games have given me so many great experiences that have become memories I'll never forget, and I would hate to see it all end here. I hope one day we can take to a new stage and ignite our souls once again.
So, are you guys ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Hey.
I'm not gonna give up on you that easily.
Nice. Dang, this was a good ass video, dude. 100%. You probably put a lot of time and effort into this, and yeah, it shows, man. Good on you, man. I'm a fan now. Like, I don't know, maybe like if another Soulcalibur comes out, like I could play it or whatever. But I don't know. It's just nice to see like the rise and fall of it, because you know I think I dip out. I dipped out on 4, played 2, 3, and 4, and then I was like, eh. But yeah, Soulcalibur has that little place in my heart for it, and I don't regret it. So yeah, I mean, we're just waiting for the next chapter essentially. But yeah, good stuff, man. That's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, peace.